A lot of people question, what is it we can actually do to counter this Marxist, leftist, indoctrination centers, also known as the education systems within America? So the first tangible strategy would be to actually get out and educate people within your community and anyone willing to listen to you. So learn something and then start to distribute that information. So today I want to talk about someone who is a quiet revolutionary in terms of education. Today we're going to look at Teach-Em Chuck, the scholar, the noble warrior set out on the IG streets to enlighten people. You don't have to have a formal accreditation to give people a synopsis of a book or help them get introduced to new concepts. We're going to take a look at some of his clips, and I'm going to give you some of my perspective.
Sick and tired of your propaganda. And I'll be damned if you emotionally and socially blackmail me by calling me a racist or a coon or Uncle Tom, a sellout, and a coconut, and this, that, and the third.
And get introduced to Teach-Em Chuck. So he's originally from Detroit, Michigan, and he's really an anomaly because there's not a lot of people who actually know what Marxism is. They actually know what leftism is from this incredibly nuanced, well-researched level. We have Thomas Sowell, we have various other scholars in the arena, but we don't have really, an updated version for 2023. He helped to enlighten me and understand what exactly was Marxism, what exactly was leftism, and how does that interact in the Black community? How does that manifest in the world? Who are the actual scholars involved and perpetuating and building and distributing this ideology? He's actually giving you his concise, well-researched analysis and perspective on these multiple issues. This is something that's sorely needed in the whole conservative freedom principle block of people who want to maintain some semblance of reality and freedom. Being educated on the opposing ideology is incredibly important because then you have a lot more in terms of context, and you can do a lot more in terms of understanding and giving context to what it is they're doing, why they're doing it, where they come up with these ideas, because a lot of them seem, a lot of leftist ideas seem, let's just be honest, insane. Finding someone who can actually break that down in a digestible way for a person. These things are really complex topics, but being able to digest it and make it fun and engaging is what we need. We need more people doing this because that way we're going to get people to engage in information. We're going to expose people to contrasting thoughts because, if you look around, there seems to be this steady drum of leftist ideology that's permeating every single institution and these so-called private companies. They all seem to lean left. It's really strange. We are all familiar with Marx and Engels, but there's also, people like Antonio Gramsci, Howard Zinn. These are all critical players in the distribution of leftist Marxist ideology.
Remember, Antonio Gramsci, the Italian Marxist who was sort of like a protege of Karl Marx, believed that communism did not spread to the West because capitalism, in essence, had made the peoples of the West too comfortable. And it was the culture that had inculcated the principles of capitalism. So in order to overthrow the liberal West, contrary to what Marx believed when he talked about the proletariat seizing the means of production, the proletariat must seize the means of cultural production. Because if you want to overthrow the society, you have to challenge the hegemony of the status quo by infiltrating the institutions and creating what Antonio Gramsci referred to as a parallel culture or a counter culture within the dominant culture to challenge the hegemony.
So without knowing these people and without knowing, generally what it is and how they created their tactical strategy in order to influence society, you're going to be at a disadvantage as a conservative, as someone who supports freedom and capitalism, et cetera, If you don't know their game plan, you're going to be at a disadvantage. You don't even understand what it is they're actually trying to achieve.
So like I said, going back, make the private political. Everything you do in your private life is political. Everything you do. So that means that, notice how we talk about how the left politicizes everything. You have to understand, because politics is their meta-narrative. So everything in life, everything is in reality is downstream from politics. So they use entertainment as a platform to engage in their activism. Once again, we know it, we see it, we recognize it, we call it out, and they call us bigots because we don't want a black Ariel. No, motherfucker, it's not that we don't want a black Ariel. We are getting sick and tired of your political agenda, and not for the sake of it being political, or not in the sense that, well, we don't like politics in our entertainment. Because once again, politics is downstream from spirituality, and spirituality, once again, acts as a meta-narrative that informs or forms your entire worldview. So all things in essence is political by default, but what we are quite frankly getting sick and tired of are the lies and the falsehoods.
And I especially love people who can expose things hidden in plain sight. I mean, maybe I'm slow, but you know, even from the outside in, not a lot of us are connecting the dots in relation to like the Black Power movement and how it's just simply like a Marxist like communist movement. I mean, it's the fist, right? We've seen that before.
The Pan-African flag is also known as the Black Liberation flag. So anytime you see people running around, they chanting and going on and such and so forth, and they're showing the fist, waving the fist, pumping a fist, they are advocates of radical left-wing extremism.
They keep rehashing and reusing the same symbolism because, again, if you know, symbolism is incredibly effective in transferring mental models, in constructing that, in laying down that mental framework for people to quickly build association and transfer knowledge. Because
I don't give a damn what form it comes in, whether it's Pan-Africanism, you'll see the fist associated with feminism, and so on and so forth. But see, the classical symbol, of course, of communism, of the hammer and the sickle, right, is also, they associated with Black Power and fighting the power, of course, because that's what that's what they would have people believe, that they are fighting some kind of power. I want you to walk with me, wacko, because I'm gonna spit some shit on here, man.
Human beings, we used symbols before we used linear language to convey information. So that's just a little insight. But Teach 'em Chuck is sort of like the antidote to all of those woke rappers and public figures who really love to spread their ideology of oppression and racism, all from $1 Million Mansions. But he doesn't support BLM, he doesn't support the victim narrative, he doesn't support any of that, and actually explains why we shouldn't do that and why it's impossible to justify oppression within a country where...
And then want to make you feel guilty. What? Because you what? You want to live a decent life? Because you want to increase the police presence in your neighborhood because you tired of the black criminals terrorizing? Huh? Your neighborhood? Can't even park your car in front of your home without living in perpetual fear that you're going to wake up one day and your car is going to be gone. Nothing left but a pile of shattered glass on the concrete. That makes you white. I got it. I understand.
And it's nice to see someone from the Black community, some person who is Black, who actually acknowledges that this is not the worst place on earth. It's not. There's far worse places, especially when it comes to women's rights, God. So one of my favorite lessons also was how he sort of broke down, and I think this was in my podcast that I did with him, where he sort of broke down that leftism really defines what a conservative is.
Here in the United States, we define the right as anything right of the left, because the left is its own. The leftism is a self-defined philosophy on its own. Mm-hmm. Anything that is anything that we call right-wing within an American political context is anything that pushes the center or the Overton window closer towards the center by attempting to, of course, relinquish or remove power, or to take power away from the state. So the anti-leftist agenda is the right-wing agenda because it is defined. Leftism casts a kind of shadow, and whatever that shadow is pretty much how we define the right. What the right is attempting to do is trying to take the United States back towards constitutional principles. In the founding of the country, as it is written, our history, our tradition, it can't be right-wing. That's incongruent with logic because the founding of the country cannot be right-wing. The founding of the country is, in fact, the true middle.
It's because leftism keeps pushing things farther and farther. They're constantly pushing the envelope. It's never ending. It's never ceasing. They're never satisfied. I think we can all realize that and have all, been able to observe that in the last few decades, that this continual march toward progress, destruction of society, basically, this continual march toward progress, it keeps moving. They keep shifting the goalpost. So the conservative essentially moves over, and if you acknowledge biological reality, that now makes you a conservative. Whereas before, that wasn't the case. So leftism in itself really defines what a conservative is. So if you find yourself really not comfortable with the title of conservative, you don't like that association, honestly, you have to think about what it is you're conserving. And because leftism is sort of like a battery acid to everything that is natural law, natural order, it seeks to destroy and dismantle all of those things. When they say they're dismantling systems, that's what they're doing.
Leftism is why it's called the left-hand path. The left-hand path is, in fact, the Luciferian path.
And if you notice, they're always looking to break things down. It's never about building things up. Anyway, if you feel that you're not really comfortable with the title of conservative, just think about what it is you're conserving, okay? You're trying to conserve basic natural law. You're trying to conserve basic morality. You're trying to conserve basic gender roles, like things like that. And it's just insane that we have to give up all of these things in order to progress, but to progress towards what? I found this image online, and I think it's the most accurate representation of this leftist utopia they keep promising. They keep telling us is just around the corner. So please take the time to understand and research and get oriented in their worldview so that you can hopefully anticipate and better counter their narratives and their arguments and all of this propaganda that they're pushing out all the time. If you don't know your opponent, if you don't understand what motivates them, if you don't understand what end goal they're trying to reach, it's going to be really, really hard to create an effective counter message to that, because your messaging might come off seemingly unrelated to theirs. So we have to be consistent. We have to be concise when we create effective messaging. So more on that later, because messaging is incredibly important. So I've got all of the references linked below. Check him out, follow Teach Him Chuck, get oriented, join his sessions, review his content, and subscribe to his YouTube channel, because I really promise you he's going to give you a very unique perspective. And the more we get these different perspectives out, the more we have different talking heads, the more we have different people distributing information, the quicker and easier it will be digested in the larger whole, and the harder it is to refute, because you can't call him racist. Really? I'm so tired of those taglines. I'm so tired of those little taglines. I'm so tired of those little slogans. I mean, they just devalue everything. All right. This was an episode of Propaganda Fluent. Like and subscribe if you're interested in social engineering, mind control, and propaganda. It's time to really dismantle this leftist bullshit. It's gone on way too long.